Hey everyone, William Miller, National Brand Manager, back again with Chad. On this Maintenance Monday, we want to just take a little bit different angle. Instead of this being a how-to, one of the things that you and I talked a lot about offline was we really want to start being transparent and really start bringing education more than we ever had in the past. A lot of customers, as I've told you, from being on the outside looking in, coming into purchasing a coach, financially you have the money. What happens after the purchase, I think, is our biggest opportunity. You agreed. With you being our Director of Customer Satisfaction, you do much more than warranty, customer service, ensuring our audits are in line to manufacturing to the highest standards. So as we discussed, we made a list of topics. One of the biggest questions that our customers have, that I have coming new with DRV, is everything that has to do with electrical. You've got shore power, battery power, low voltage, what operates what. I think it's really complex, so I want this to be more conversation, understanding, to discuss everything relative to the electrical system. And then maybe from this, we may get more questions down the road in terms of operation, but really I want this to be consider it an electrical 101 intro to the DRV line of products. So with that, thank you for taking some time. And I think to start this off, what is the best way for us to start talking about the electrical system?
All right, so electrical. It's a broad topic. There are a lot of things that we can talk about in electrical. So I want to make this as simple as I can.
Okay.
But just understand it's complex. I mean, look around us. There's all these lights on. There's everything going on in this unit. It's a beautiful unit. You can tell the complexity of a DRV just by looking at it. So you can't imagine how much wire goes into it, how many switches, how many different things are in here. So let's start off with the basics, okay? You have 12 volt power. That's your batteries, okay? So your batteries that are in the coach supplied with the DRV are gonna supply that 12 volt power. That's gonna run a lot of things like your lights, okay? Some appliances are 12 volt power, but in the DRVs, a lot of your appliances are 110 volt power, and we'll get into that. Your vent fans, things of that nature. Those are your 12 volt powered items. All the items that you would find commonly in an RV are typically 12 volt, okay? Now, the battery supply can be different, and we can get more in the weeds on that as we go into future videos, but you may have one 12 volt battery, you may have two 6 volt batteries that supply 12 volts, okay? That's pretty complex, but we don't really need to get too deep into that.
Sure.
Then you have 110 volt power. You mentioned shore power.
Yep.
That's what's going to supply your 110 volt power, okay? In a couple of different ways, but shore power will come into the unit and it'll supply power to things like your refrigerator, your microwave. Some of those more household type appliances that DRV puts in to their products, those are going to be the 110 volt powered things, okay? So the big difference, if you want to distinguish the two in a DRV product versus maybe some other products out in the world, but if you look at 12 volt power in a DRV, you're gonna look at a fuse panel, okay? So it's going to be like spade fuses like you see in automotive. 110 volt power is going to be breakers, on-off breakers like you would see in a house, okay? That's kind of the easy way to distinguish what's 12 volt, what's 110 volt.
So just again, as we build this out then, so a lot of times I'm sure customers, I had asked when we were going on the tour, right, when you pull off that panel, so right away, to tell the difference between what's going to be the low voltage versus the 110 will be, again, how that panel looks, right? A breaker versus the fuse.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and they'll be marked. Anything that's on the fuse panel that's marked, that's going to be a 12 volt powered item.
Okay.
Anything on the breaker panel that's going to be marked is going to be a 110 volt powered item.
So just a question that I have then. So if you are new, let's say this is your first coach, or you're getting into it to kind of see, hey, what is different with DRV versus other brands? They'll be able to access that panel and they're going to see and know right away comfortably, all right, they're going to be labeled so we know, hey, all of these breakers are, for the shore power. And then all of these fuses, that tells me, the owner, that everything that's labeled in the fuse area can operate on battery power.
That's correct.
Because one of the questions that I've been seeing, right, since we've been working together on some different various projects, was we get asked a lot of questions, whether people are boondocking or being off grid, or hey, they're at a resort. Hey, what can we use on battery power? What can we use on shore power? And also having to use, one or the other. So I think giving that clarity is a great way for us to start, because I think that's a lot of questions that people ask is, hey, can my slide outs operate on 110? Well, if you look at the panel as a reference, you would see if it's a fuse, then it can operate on battery, and if it's on the breakers, then it's going to require shore power.
Okay, so let's go just a little bit deeper into the 12 volt versus 110 volt.
Okay.
What can run and what can't. Okay, so your fuse panel, which is your 12 volt, is generally going to designate what can run on 12 volt. So that's when you don't have shore power, you're boondocking.
Yep.
Then you have your breakers, that's 110 volt. Okay, so there are some items that will run that are 110 volt powered with your fuse panel breakers. So most of our products have a residential style refrigerator, which is 110 volt only.
Okay.
But we're not limiting our customers to only running that when they have shore power or a generator. We put an inverter in, okay? Now
you're making it confusing, thank you.
This is where it becomes really confusing.
Right.
An inverter actually takes 12 volt power and converts it to 110 volt power.
Right.
There's also another product called a converter.
Okay.
So don't get these two confused. A converter takes 110 volt power and turns it to 12 volt power. So let's go back to the inverter real quick.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. We're going to take 12 volt power from your batteries.
Yep.
And we're going to run a 110 volt appliance with an inverter.
Okay.
That power comes in from the battery into the inverter. It gets transformed into 110 volt power inside the box. That power comes out to power your refrigerator. Okay. Now that's a 1,000 watt inverter. So that's enough power, 110 volt power now, to operate a refrigerator.
So I have two questions right there. As our intent is, right, for our current owners group, for prospects that are looking at a DRV to really understand everything, I have two questions here then at that point. Number one, is an inverter something that we supply for all of our DRV models as standard, or is it optional? That's the first question.
Okay.
So
it is standard.
So it's going to be an inverter is in every single DRV unit.
Every DRV unit that is going to get a residential style refrigerator.
Okay.
So there are some way crazy out there options that every once in a while that somebody will want a RV style refrigerator, for example.
Right.
I don't know if we've done that for a long time, but back in the day, some people have wanted that. Okay.
Sure.
That particular unit will not have an inverter.
Okay.
Because it doesn't require the 110 volt for the refrigerator.
Got it.
Anything with a residential refrigerator will have a standard 1,000 watt inverter.
So assuming that 2021, unless it's requested, we're going to have the standard residential fridge that would require an inverter. All of the units will have them as standard. Correct. My next question on this specific point is, then if the customer is going to use the battery to operate the residential style fridge, is there a process that they have to do to make it operate, or will it be automatic?
It will be automatic as long as you have battery power.
Okay.
So that's going to be the other thing that you need to pay attention to as a consumer is if you're running 110 volt appliances off of the battery power through an inverter, your batteries are going to run down faster.
Got it.
Okay, so you want to make sure that you're not taking all of the charge out of the batteries just to run your refrigerator.
Right. Those
Those batteries won't last as long as if you're just running 12 volt.
Of course, and I just want to be clear too, because we are the manufacturer, so by no means am I recommending that everybody operate their fridge with battery power. You're just confirming that if you have to, if you're going to, you have the ability, as long as you have charge in your batteries, and there is no process that you have to do, it will be automatic.
It's automatic.
Okay.
Yep, it's automatic.
Okay, Chad, so that's awesome. I understand inverter. So let's talk about a converter. Before we go into the converter, again, based on what we know for 2021, unless it's requested, will every DRV unit also have a converter?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now please explain the converter.
Okay, so the converter takes 110 volt power,
Yep. Shore power.
shore power,
Okay.
and switches it to 12 volt power.
Got it?
So somebody may question, okay, so I'm plugged into shore power and I'm running 12 volt lights. How does that work?
Okay.
Right? Because I'm not necessarily using battery power.
Right.
I wouldn't think I would be.
Am I going to
because-
cause damage
yeah,
to the
because I'm
system?
plugged in, right?
Right.
Well, that's what your converter does. Your converter takes that shore power that's coming in, and it converts it back to 12-volt power. It doesn't run the lights. It actually puts charge into the battery, so your batteries don't run dead while your lights are running. So that's unlimited now. So if you're on shore power, you don't need to charge your batteries. They're being charged by the converter.
And the lights are still being operated by the battery, but you're not worried about the battery at this time because the converter is charging the batteries while they're being used when you're at an RV park.
That's correct. And your converters are in all RVs. So if you're small travel trailer to large fifth wheel, all of them are going to have a converter.
Okay.
But they're sized to the load that particular RV is going to use. So for a DRV, you obviously have a lot more lights than you're
Sure.
going to have in a 16-foot travel trailer, right? So that converter is sized for the load that needs to be charging the batteries so that it can sustain battery power while the lights are on.
Good to know. So Chad, I'm just sitting here thinking, understanding that everything's automatic, everything is standard, that's great for our customers that don't have to worry about the electrical in terms of, am I doing something right? Am I going to do something wrong? We've given them clarity on, the operation of, and the access points of, the fuses and the breakers. That being said, we're not everywhere with our campers. And just like at home, breakers, trip out, fuses get blown. I guess just to give some commonality, we don't have an internal issue. I've gone through our owners forums. You and I have been kind of, peeling the onion within our customer service, kind of trying to look for common problems to discuss. I'm not seeing anything consistent wise on why that happens, but can you just at least speak to, with your years of experience, why does it happen commonly in the RV industry, which would cause, a breaker to, trip or a fuse to get blown?
Yeah, good question. It can be complicated, but we'll try to break it down into some simple, just ideas in simple terms. So let's start out by what fuses and breakers really are.
Right.
Okay, they're protective devices.
Yep.
That's what they do. They protect your circuit, your appliances, from overloading with current.
Yep.
And blowing up. So a fuse is not resettable. If a fuse blows, it needs to be replaced. Okay, so there's a little metal strip in there
Yep.
that actually, if there's too much current flowing through, it will actually melt that little strip, blow the fuse, no more power can pass through. So it protects your appliances.
Right.
Not resettable. Okay, you have to replace the fuse,
Yep.
which that happens every once in a while. For breakers, breakers are meant to be resettable.
Yep.
So when a breaker trips, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got a major problem. It really could be just something as simple as dirty power. I mean, our customers go everywhere with these things, right?
Right.
They don't know what they're plugging into from one day to the next. So at a campground, they may have a slight power surge. They may have a slight amperage loss. They may have something. Something may happen in the power post where a breaker trips. Or maybe they've got a lot of things running at one time and 2 or 3 things kick on. The compressors of the refrigerator, air conditioner, something kick on all at the same time. And there's just a quick power surge of, man, we're wanting a lot of power here.
Sure.
So something might trip the breaker because that particular appliance is trying to protect itself, or the circuit is trying to protect the appliance.
Sure.
In other words. So your breaker might trip. If breakers need to be reset, don't freak out.
Yep.
Reset the breaker. It's usually in the middle if it needs reset. Turn it off, flip it back on. And then if everything operates properly, you're fine. The circuit protection worked exactly as designed.
Right.
Okay. If a fuse blows, more times than not, replace the fuse with the exact same number that's on the fuse. If it says 10, replace it with a 10.
Right.
If it says 15, replace it with a 15. And you probably won't have any more problems. Okay. But that's what they're designed to do, is just protect the appliances and the circuits from some sort of overload.
And the only reason, again, why I asked, because as people are looking, to go and have that destination freedom and go to different RV parks, the one thing that I've learned is, where your connection point is at your shore power. Sometimes you have a looser connection if there's a lot of traffic there. So that obviously dictates the flow of electricity coming in. And, as I've learned in talking to different electricians, not all power supplies are the same. You could be on the West Coast but the amount of flow that comes in when you make your connection versus like the East Coast or desolate, there's weaknesses in the power supply at the shore station. So I only want to point that out because, you know, when you plug in at one location, it just might vary at the rate of, you know, flow for your electric power coming into the unit. And that's why these things happen.
That's absolutely correct. And one thing to note in all of that is a fuse, even though it can't be reset, it's a throwaway and replace. A breaker, even though it's resettable, it can weaken over time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a breaker that trips off on more than one occasion frequently,
Mm-hmm.
that could weaken the breaker over time, and that breaker may need to be replaced. So keep that in mind too. That can happen in your coach. That can happen at the shore power box too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're breaking breakers are tripping on the shore power box,
Right.
that could be a weak breaker as well. It
Right.
could signify a problem. It could signify a weak breaker. You know, those are things that obviously need a little bit more investigation if you're tripping breakers constantly or blowing fuses constantly.
Sure.
But if it's once in a great while, there's probably not really a problem.
And so again, to stay right here and serving our owners and serving our customers, if they have to replace a breaker or a fuse, is this something where, as us, the manufacturer, they don't have to come back to Howe, Indiana? They could go online, or they could get at least their fuses anywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they just have to meet whatever that part number is. And as far as if a customer needs to get a replaced breaker, is this something that they can order the part, or as the manufacturer, do we recommend that they go to an authorized service center or a dealer if they're having continued repeated issues?
Breakers are really snap-in pieces. So
Okay.
if you feel like a breaker needs replaced,
Yep.
you could replace it yourself. However, if you think a breaker needs replaced, it's been tripping on an awful lot. Probably go to an authorized dealer and have it just looked at to make sure. If you're going to replace a breaker, unless you are really, really good with electrical and know what's going on, I would probably have someone else look at it.
Okay.
On the fuse side, yeah, you can go to an automotive store. They're an automotive style fuse.
Mhm.
You can go to an automotive store, a Walmart,
Anywhere.
or anywhere, get those and just replace it.
Okay.
Now, if it continues to blow for some reason, you probably better look into it a little bit deeper.
Okay.
We also sell breakers here. I mean, we can get them.
Okay.
It's much easier to go to your local guy,
Sure.
local store and get it, but we can sell them.
Okay. So one electrical component that I see a lot, especially in the aftermarket, you know, I buy them for my home, is surge protectors, right? So based on everything we've discussed so far, are surge protectors common in the RV business, either, you know, through us as a manufacturer? I know that all of our customers have the option to get them included on their units. And they have access to 1,000 different options, you know, in the aftermarket. What is the benefit of having a surge protector then for their coach?
Okay, so let's go back just a second here. I mentioned earlier people traveling campground to campground and getting maybe dirty power.
Yep.
So if you talk to electricians, almost all electricians will tell you that your power that comes into your house or into the post at the campground, it's going to be dirty, and that means that your voltage is going to
Up and down, right.
Up and down, right? And it can get peaks and valleys. Well, your surge protector is going to protect against those peaks and valleys. So let's put it this way. If I'm going to protect my DRV unit as I build it, I'm going to use circuit breakers. That protects everything in here.
You're right.
Okay? So how do I protect that power from dirty power from even entering into my coach, right?
By having a surge protector.
That's where the surge protector comes in. So do I recommend one? Absolutely. I think it's a great idea to have surge protection on all RVs because you don't know what you're plugging into. You know, campgrounds these days are way more sophisticated than they used to be. We know how much of a boom the RV industry has gone through.
Sure.
So there's campgrounds all over the place.
And we're going to see more campgrounds coming.
And they're all adding new electrical posts all the time. Can they do something incorrectly in their electrical management system that might cause someone an issue? Absolutely, they can. And if you can protect yourself against that, by all means, it's really an inexpensive way to do it.
So we know that there's a component then, and there's a value of having a surge protector and everything that we've outlined. My next question then is, you know, buying an RV is a big investment. There is a lot of maintenance, and you and I are on a mission to point out every single thing that customers need to be looking for. So I invite you guys to stay with us. There's going to be a lot more coming. The next question then, in all things encompassing electrical, is there any maintenance that we have based on something we suggest we do every 90 days? Is there certain processes that you're working to better outline so we serve our customers even better with more clarity and communication? What is the maintenance for electrical on a coach?
Okay, so there's a couple main things I would tell people to look for. Number one is your cord. Okay, your main shore power cord. Always make sure that's in good condition. If it's a little bit scraped up on the exterior, which is the coating, and it's not going through the actual rubber coating, that's fine. It's okay. But if there's any kind of cut or anything in that, man, replace it.
Yeah.
Get a new cord. Get something good on there so that you're not taking that type of a risk. So your cord's number one.
And that's a safety thing.
That's a safety thing. And if you have a power cord reel, there's a connection box right by your power cord reel. Make sure every once in a while you take the cover off that box just to make sure nothing's come loose. Okay? Because you don't want a short coming through that, because that feeds the entire coach. So you want to make sure those connections are good, your cords are good. Also, your battery connections. Battery connectors, with the vibrations of the road and travel, battery connections can come a little bit loose. Okay, so we want to make sure we're inspecting those. I would personally inspect those probably every trip.
Kind of like that pre-trip checklist.
Yeah, just to be safe. Chances are nothing's going to happen, but the one time something does happen, you're going to have a problem. Right?
Yeah.
So check those connections. Also, maybe once a year, or if you feel like, I've got some time, I'm going to do it and I feel capable, the covers of the actual fuse panel and the cover of the breaker box, you can pull those off and you can look inside to see if your electrical connections are all tight and good. All of those are screwed in place, right?
Yeah.
So we know the riggers of the road can loosen screws. So maybe every once in a while check those. I don't think that's as important as the cord and the outside connection or the battery connection, but if you feel inclined and you feel like you're capable of doing that, I think that's a good thing to get in the habit of.
Now, I just have one question, and this is, I think, it's a realistic, fair question. There's a lot of times, again, as I've said, people have the money, so it's not a problem to buy a coach, especially one that's beautiful. Not knowing the maintenance, one of the things too is you're out there on your first trip, it's raining outside. There are people, I would be one of them, for the first time, like, hey, it's raining, it's on my cord. Is that very dangerous from a safety standpoint if you take it out from the hose reel, right? So let's say after a rain, a customer opens the door, they pull out the hose and they see, it's wet. Is it a all-weather hose that we use that will still function wise, or is there any danger or precaution we want to just mention? Because I'm sure that there's customers that have that concern when it is wet.
Sure.
Are they going to be safe and okay?
Yeah, if the cord itself, the coating of the cord, if that part's wet and there's no cuts or tears or anything, you're fine.
Okay.
You're not going to have a problem. But the metal prongs that come out of the end of the head of the plug, you want to make sure those are dry before you go to plug it in. It's just like, if you're in a bathtub, you don't want to plug in your hairdryer while you're sitting in the bathtub. Same concept. You want to make sure that the ends of that are dry and the post that you're plugging into is also dry. Now, those are almost always covered with a flip-up type lid, so they're usually dry, but you want to be safe. So always make sure you grab a dry rag if you're going to go plug in and it's raining. Get those prongs dried off, and then make sure you visually inspect the post and make sure it's not wet.
And I only say that because not all RV parks are the same. So if you're not covered and rain's coming and you're not able to move, it might be uncomfortable, but it might be smart to reel in everything so it doesn't get all wet, and just use battery power if you need to, as opposed to risking, your cord, getting saturated or things like that.
Yeah, better safe than sorry in that case, for sure.
Yeah. So the other thing that we do here at DRV, and this is very important for me to take my time, make it very clear so everybody understands, and we can remove as much gray area or assumption as possible. I'm going to say for the record, we will prep for solar. But I also want to make very clear to everyone that what do we do in terms of prepping for solar, and what would void the warranty because Amazon's out there. Some people are finding solar panels as big as New York City. So let's just start out with, we do prep for solar, start there, and then talk about what could or could not affect warranty and what customers should do if they wonder or are concerned.
Okay. Tough question. Get into some complexity. But for starters, the warranty on the electrical system as designed by your unit. Okay, so this is individual to each unit. It falls under our 1-year warranty.
Okay.
So that's our normal setup with the same amount of batteries, inverter, the things that we put in. We do prep for solar, but we prep only 1 gauge wire as a standard. Okay, not the number 1 gauge, but only a single gauge.
Single wire. Okay.
Don't exactly know the gauge, but it's designed for a small solar system.
Right.
So you're talking maybe 1 small panel, 1 medium-sized panel, just to kind of charge your batteries. Okay.
Got it.
Now, if a customer says, I want to add...
Which we've had.
I want to add a whole lot of solar panels. I want to do all this. Okay, so what we will do and what we have the capability of doing is we can change that gauge of wire that we send from our battery compartment. We do not hook it up, but it goes from our battery compartment to the roof.
Okay.
We can change the gauge of that wire to try and help meet a customer's need. But if after the fact they change the number of batteries they have, how the electrical components work, how many solar panels, if you have 1 small panel, 2 batteries is fine. If you have 3 humongous panels, 2 batteries is not fine. That's not going to do anything for you. So you're going to want to put more batteries in. Once you start doing those types of modifications, our warranty on the 12-volt electrical system is really void.
Sure.
Because it's completely modified at that point. So if you have any questions, if a customer would have any questions on what they can or can't do, I would highly recommend calling our customer service department and just asking what that looks like. We're not experts on solar, but we can tell you what we can do from a factory perspective to prep it, right? Or your sales rep can tell you what can be prepped. And then beyond that, it's kind of up to you. But just know and be aware that beyond that point, it's kind of all on you. You got to make sure it's done by a professional and done right.
And I would, caution everybody watching, be truthful and honest, because you and our team are going to make a decision based on what they tell you.
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, it's going to be, just 1 extra battery, and then they come in for servicing and they got 27 deep cycle batteries in the basement, I just want to point that out because, we have more and more of our customers doing more, again, destination freedom, long-term stays, 3 months. And again, the technology is advancing. But currently where we're at today is exactly what you said with the initial prep. And that's the limitation. Anything beyond that, we want them to contact us first. One more question.
Can I expand on that real quick?
Yes.
I do want to make clear, we're not trying to put ourselves in a position where we don't want to help in that situation. The problem is, when it comes to that sort of thing, we have more questions than answers.
Right.
So we can't help. And then what happens is, we don't want to make you look like a bad guy. We don't want to look like a bad guy. But we don't know what's going on out in the field to actually address your problem at all if you have a problem.
Sure.
So we're really in a bad position from a warranty perspective and a technical service perspective in that case.
So, outlining again everything that we do relative to the maintenance, the add-ons, the surge protector, we explained the solar prep, we explained our 1-year warranty, how it could be voided. So please, be our friend, stay with us, communicate. Let's be transparent with each other, case by case. The last question I have, and we didn't talk about this online, but I want to take my best guess at it. A lot of times after the purchase, we'll get requests from customers all over the country of, hey, can we have the electrical schematic, the drawing, the diagram? And that's something that we don't do. My gut feeling is we will not give that out because that's the blueprint and we have no control over the liability of somebody having that information to make their own modifications. Is that the reason? Am I wrong with my guess? And can you explain, while we're talking on the electrical systems, why we do not give out our electrical circuits for people to have?
Well, it's difficult. It's a difficult question to answer because I want to put it in terms that are that are simple to understand.
Sure.
Maybe reasonable and logical. So if I take literally thousands of feet of wire in a 40-foot long DRV coach, and I've got different components in a lot of these units.
Right.
And if I build the same 40-foot floor plan, I may have some different components and some different layouts. So the wiring is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
So from coach to coach, the wiring can be different. So we don't have a single schematic for each one.
Okay.
The other idea is we want to give our production guys some freedom to do things efficiently, right? So that may mean that they're making some changes in where wires run on the fly. And for us, in a production environment and customer service environment, that doesn't really make that big of a difference. We know the general area where the wires are run, but if it changes a little bit specifically, it's not that big of a deal. We're more interested in connections, how they get connected, where they get connected, and that everything is operating properly. So it's kind of one of those things where I think in the long run, engineering time and everything else would be eaten up crazy trying to keep up with all of the changes that may be made in electrical on a given coach. Right.
You know, Chad, and I just kind of want to end it this way. You know, so I've been on board now 28 days, and as we've been going, I'm really blown away with your focus on improving the communication and transparency with, again, not just our owners group. You've been visible and with me in every one of these videos. We are taking more and more information from our owners, your customer service team, to try to now start drawing a line in the sand to move forward, to remove the confusion, the lack of communication, more transparency. So I really do commend you on this initiative that you've been pushing. I think that, you know, this has been a long time coming, and it's great to see you championing this. So first and foremost, thank you. As far as, you know, those of you that are watching, this is, you know, 101. We wanted to start going into the topics, and my hope is that we'll get more communication, more examples, more applications that you and I can take in from, again, our current owners. So all you owners group members, you know, if you have some comments or feedback relative to this Electrical 101, we invite you to reach out and connect with us either socially. They can contact customer service. One thing I want to make very clear too, as we move forward, for those that are first timers, they're going to have a lot of, you know, questions, because electrical is not something common and people still aren't that comfortable with. What is our contact phone number? What's our 800 number? And what is the best email contact for anybody that has questions regarding electrical specific to the DRV brand of product?
Okay, so the easiest way to access that information is go to our website, drvsuites.com.
Okay.
Go to our Contact Us page. There's email information there. There's phone number information there. We also have a chat feature now on there. So if you have just simple questions, you can contact directly with one of our reps, and they'll chat with you. And that's, I want to call it instantaneous, but you know how it is. If somebody's on the phone and they're trying to chat at the same time, it may lag a little bit. But we've got a chat feature. So we'll respond to those requests, either, you know, phone calls, emails, or the chat feature, and ask us anything. We'll do our best to get the answers to you.
One more thing, Chad. So I want to make it clear to all the viewers, our hours of operation currently right now are what?
8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and that is Eastern time. Okay. That's our phone hours for our service techs. And coming soon, we're going to have a couple of additional hours added on to there. We're going to route our calls to another call center so that we can get a couple hours. That should be happening within the next 30 days.
And I expect when we have that all defined and outlined, we'll send everybody an update at that time.
We're putting that together now and getting our website changed to get some of that information out there as well. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.